into Perspective with me, Cynthia Ng. Joining me on the show today is a very special guest, Tan Sri Wan Zulkiflee, Ariffin. Tan Sri, it's great to have you with us today on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Tan Sri, I want to start with oil price. Oil was trading above $100 several years before you became CEO in April 2015. Then it crashed to under $30 a barrel. You've navigated Petronas through quite difficult times, make difficult decisions. Is Petronas now more prepared to face shocks in the global market?
Yes, it wasn't the best time to take over an organization when the oil price was really crashing. But we did several things that I think we will not be able to do if we were not faced with a crisis. So we took that opportunity to make several hard moves, in terms of efficiency of the organization and also downsizing the organization, look at our work process. So I think today Petronas is a more resilient organization than it was probably 5-10 years ago.
What are some of the key areas that you feel that are challenges that might be of concern to you and Petronas at this point in time?
In terms of markets, we are very conservative in Petronas. When we do our business planning, we take a very conservative view. And I think today, we see the supply for 2020 will grow at around about 1.8 million barrels per day. But the demand growth is only at 1.1 million barrels a day. So, there will be an overhang of supply. And given what's happening today, the latest on this coronavirus and all that, I think that will affect demand. So we were very conservative. And for our plans of this year, we are planning in the high 50s.
For projects undertaken?
For projects, for projects, it's more of a long-term view that's important. It's not this daily movements of oil prices. So, we do a high 50s kind of projection for this year. So anything higher than that is always an upside for us.
All right. So as we speak now, Brent oil price is around $60 per barrel. Do you think you'll see the days of $100 oil again in your tenure?
No.
Why?
The U.S. is becoming a swing producer these days with the shale oil. So I think that puts a ceiling on the oil price. And I think $100 would be not possible in this 1-2 years.
Okay. So with a more conservative outlook, I'd like to find out about the dividend payment to the federal government, because in previous media interviews, I think you have guided a lower dividend payment for 2020. Can you elaborate on that?
Last year was an extraordinary year in terms of dividend. We paid 54 billion ringgit, so that was 24 as a normal dividend and 30 billion as a one-time special dividend. So this year it will be around the normal dividend range, but I think we will only announce it after our 2019 full year results.
Okay. So Petronas has ramped up capital expenditure last year, I think, to about 50 billion ringgit a year, with more focus on upstream. Any change in spending and strategy for the coming year?
If you look at our average capex, it has always been around about 50 billion ringgit. So last year was a shift from downstream to upstream because we completed the RAPID project in Pengerang. So 2-3 years before that, a lot of expenditure was on the RAPID project. Now that it's completed, there's a shift to the upstream. So this year it will be around about the same. It will be around about 50 billion ringgit. But this year we also allocated a certain percentage, around about 5%, to renewables energy. So that's the only thing that's different.
Right. I wanted to touch on that, the 5% on renewables. There is certainly a lot of pressure on oil companies to act on climate change. I believe you just got back from Davos. There's a lot of conversation about big oil companies to reduce carbon emissions. How is Petronas moving towards that direction with that 5% allocation on renewables? If you can elaborate.
This 5% allocation is a result of something that we did early last year. Early last year, we announced our new statement of purpose. So the new statement of purpose reads, to be a progressive energy and solutions provider enriching lives for a sustainable future. So if you look at it, there is no, the word oil and gas is not there. So it's energy and a solutions partner. So that's why we look at our portfolio, and in this portfolio we said, despite oil and gas will be the main contributor to our revenues, but there is a need to kind of reposition the company so that we will be ready for these energy transition issues.
Can you share with us that 5% allocation? What are some of the projects in place, perhaps investments that are made into renewables?
Last year we acquired a company known as M Plus in India, and today we have around about 500 megawatts of capacity in India, but that's overseas. Let me talk about domestic. So domestic, Surya, we've got a small solar power on the rooftops. We have got in Gebeng, we've got a 10 megawatt installation in Gebeng. And today there's also a program to install solar panels on our retail stations. So as time goes by, you see more and more of our retail stations will be powered by solar. And we are in the last phase of negotiation with a big retail chain in Malaysia to also install solar panels on their facilities. And we work with UiTM. So many of the campuses in UiTM will also be with solar panels. So these are some of the activities that we have on the solar. In addition to that, there are also some wind opportunities, not in Malaysia, but in the ASEAN region, which we are bidding for.
All right. You have an important task ahead, which is to prepare Petronas for a low-carbon future. I'd like to find out, as a state oil giant, what is your interpretation of a low-carbon company?
I think many people get different messages from this. Many people are against oil and gas, but frankly speaking, that is not the issue. The issue is with emissions. So for Petronas, I think in this going into the future, we will first, like I mentioned, we've got a new statement of purpose, which means we've got to look at our portfolio, business portfolio, and which also means we have got to allocate a certain percentage of our capex to renewables energy. I think that's one. Secondly, we are investing in technologies to cut down emissions from our oil and gas operations. So we do a lot of design modifications on our venting, on our flaring design. We are having a technology project to look at the feasibility of sequestration of carbon dioxide into the reservoir. So I think it is a very important part, this to address emission from the conventional oil and gas operations. Because for a fact, oil and gas will still remain to be the main contributor to our energy mix. Then thirdly, we look also at policies. This is also to help the government, namely Malaysian government, on how to come up with long-term policies that will be sustainable, that will address also these energy transition issues. And the last one, Petronas is a very strong advocate of gas. 70% of our resources are gas. So we are a strong advocate, and we do it on many platforms. We do it in the region on the Astro platform. In Malaysia, we strongly support the Malaysia Gas Association. Overseas, we have got strategic dialogues with some of our partners. They are very much involved in gas. So that is also one of our efforts in terms of these climate change issues.
I'd like to pick your point on gas because Petronas has considerable investment in natural gas projects domestically and internationally. But global LNG prices have tumbled to multi-year lows. So how is Petronas navigating that scenario?
We've been in the business since early 80s, and if you look at since early 80s, this volatility is something that we are quite used to. So unfortunately, last year, 70 million tons per annum of new capacity projects were sanctioned. You know, I think today the demand for LNG is around about 350, 360 million tons per annum, and last year alone 70 million tons. It's also unfortunate that, you know, we have this herd mentality in the oil and gas industry. So when one project is being sanctioned, then many other projects are also being sanctioned at the same time. But this is not the first time that it's happening. So if you look into the cycles, yeah, this is something that oil and gas companies are used to. And for the fact that we are an integrated company, so we are not only an LNG company, so we've got petrochemicals, we've got refining, we've got other business. That kind of provides a natural hedge to the whole of our business.
So in the past, LNG was seen as a cleaner form of energy, but now with renewable energy sources like solar, wind and hydro have seen increased investments, LNG has at times been seen as a less clean form of fuel. What are your thoughts on that? How will the increased attention towards renewable affect your investments in LNG then?
I'd like to give you some statistics. First, you know, maybe 20 years ago, the contribution of fossil fuels to the whole energy mix is around about 80 or 82%. Today, it's still about the same. So not many people realize that. And for instance, another statistics that I always like to share is that the growth of energy demand. You know, energy demand is growing. For LNG alone, we expect 3.5 to 4% year-on-year growth in ASEAN. And in ASEAN, the growth, 80% of the incremental demand will be served by oil and gas. So while I believe all forms of energy needs to be developed to meet the growth, but oil and gas will still play a very important role. And LNG remains to be the cleanest fossil fuel. You can't deny that fact.
So what would be the optimal portfolio of energy mix? How would it look like for Petronas in the future?
I think in all our scenario planning, yeah, oil and gas remains to be the bulk. Mm-hmm. And for instance, that's why in the next 5 years horizon, we'll be putting around about 5 to 8% of our capex. It varies from year to year, but that's how much we will be allocating to renewables.
All right. I want to turn the discussion to royalties, in particular the government's election promise of 20% royalties to oil-producing states. Now, I know that you have come out time and time again to say that that's just not feasible. Can you explain to us why 20% royalty to the oil-producing states is not possible?
I need the chart. No, anyway, let's assume the oil price is $100 per barrel, just for the ease of understanding. So from that $100, you know, straightly off the top, 5% is for the federal government, and today 5% is for the states. So you have got $10 out now. To produce oil and gas, yeah, and it varies from shallow water to ultra deep water, $70 per barrel out of the $100 is for production. And this is where many people challenge my assumption of $70. But you know, we are one of the cheaper oil producers in the region, and $70 is our average. So which leaves you the balance. And this balance, you've got tax, which the federal government takes, and then you've got sharing between Petronas and the contractor. So if you call for a $20 royalty, yeah, the whole economics just breaks down. And you know, when economics break down, nobody will invest. Not even Petronas will invest, because we have other opportunities elsewhere. So I think that's why you know, put emotions and politics aside, I'm just focusing on the economics, and that's why I'm still saying 20% royalty will not work.
All right. The other thing that Petronas has been in the headlines with, of course, is with Sarawak, on Sarawak's claim to 5% sales tax for all exports of petroleum products. The dispute has escalated into a lawsuit because Petronas has refused to pay, but Sarawak claims that other producers have paid up the 5% sales tax. Why is it different for Petronas?
I wouldn't want to comment because there's a court process ongoing, but let me give you this perspective. There is a claim, there is a claim from Sarawak that we have got to pay sales tax. And we have also got legal advice from many parties that they don't have legal competence to make that claim. So as management, what do you do? What would you do? Governance-wise, I'm not able to settle the Sarawak claims because I have a legal advice here that says that it will not be right for Petronas to pay that. So that's why we are leaving it to the courts to decide. Yeah. Because it will not be good governance if I act otherwise. I'm just sharing you my perspective.
Thanks for the clarification.
I just would like to share my perspective.
So I would like to get to the point where Petronas is a MNC and also a state oil company, right? For Petronas to be competitive globally, it needs to run efficiently, it needs to maximize profits. But you have a dual role, which is to be a provider of dividend to the federal government, at the same time to run a Fortune 500 company. Does the two roles, do they conflict at any point for you?
I don't think so. I think our job is to maximize the value, the economic pie for all our stakeholders. So that's how we need to run the organization as efficient and as cost effective as possible. And we do so by benchmarking. We do so by getting involved in industry forums, industry dialogues. We've got strategic dialogues with some of our partners. Many of us are involved. I'm on board of the Oil and Gas Governance in World Economic Forum. I'm on the stewardship panel for the future of energy. So we are not isolated in Malaysia. Yeah, we benchmark and we know what's going on, and we improve ourselves. Yeah, when we benchmark with our peers. But at the same time, we know, and I always use this term, we know the amanah, yeah, because we are in this position of trust. So we are also responsible for the well-being of Malaysians to a certain extent, not to a certain extent. So that's why I think fulfilling this amanah is very much in our DNA of the organization. So while we maximize, we contribute to the government, there are also other things that we do. CSR is big for us, and we are very selective in which portions that we want to get involved in. We want to get involved in education, in society well-being, and in environment. So these are the only pillars of our CSR. For education, not many companies in the country would give more than 300 new scholarships every year. So we've been doing that regardless of when the oil price is 100 or the oil price is 24. We still continue with that program. One very important piece is our role in terms of shaping the local oil and gas industry. So I think over the years, nurturing this oil and gas industry is very important to us, and that's how you see there are some successful Malaysian companies, not only locally but also abroad. And we do it in many ways, and we try to improve year on year. Today, for the last 3 years, we've been publishing our activity outlook, telling the local companies what our activities for the next 3 years. We help them solve some of their pain points, address some of their pain points. Financing is one. We work with the banks to facilitate the financing for some of these local companies. We are working with AgroBank to facilitate microfinancing, not in the oil and gas sector, but in the agricultural sector. So I think that is our role locally, and we are comfortable with that role.
So I'm interested to know then, when it comes to the time for you to leave, how do you measure success? How would you measure impact personally?
I think success, you can measure success on short term, you can measure success on long term, and I think there are two different matrices. I think in the short term, our financial performance speaks for itself. Yeah, our strength of our balance sheet and our performance when we benchmark on operational measures, those matrices, those are the short-term measures. But I think long-term is also to future-proof and position the organization so that they can be agile, they can be ready for whatever.
So is that your personal wish when it comes for the time for you to leave? How would you measure?
Yes, I think, you know, to make the organization ready, I'm pushing on all fronts. There are many levers for me to pull, so that the organization is ready, so that they are agile. We invest a lot in talents, we invest a lot in culture, we invest a lot in technology, in digital. So these are the many fronts that we are pushing so that it will be ready for the future.
Just a few more questions regarding you personally. You spent your entire career in Petronas. You started in 1983 as a process engineer. Did you ever envision you become CEO and president one day?
No.
And when did you know that that was attainable at one point in your career?
You know, it's Petronas has got an excellent talent development program. I'm proud of it. I think we are continuously investing to do this so that we have got a strong pipeline of succession for leadership in Petronas. Every month, myself and my leadership team, we spend at least half a day every month talking about succession planning, talking about staff development, talking about mobility. So this is a feature in Petronas which I think is which I'm very proud of. And I think in terms of leadership role, well, over the years, you know, we move people, including myself, through the various portfolios. And when you pass a certain threshold, I think you are sent to special programs. I went, for myself, I'm very fortunate, and many of my colleagues. For me, back in 2003, I was sent to Harvard for the advanced management program. So I think, and we have got a top 20, top 21 actually. Top 21. These are our top talents that we really prepare them to assume the top.
And what are the values and attributes that they have? These top talents. What do you look out for in leaders? You
know, I think to put organization ahead of yourself is one feature that I look for.
So you're workaholic then?
No, it's not workaholic. But I think, and you know, we really subscribe to our shared values, which is loyalty, professionalism, integrity, and cohesiveness. And this has been going for years. And I think the sense of responsibility and the concept of amanah, I think, must be very profound in our leaders.
Right. You were recently named as one of the top 100 brand guardians, top 100 global brand guardians for 2 consecutive years. Congratulations on that. I think the only CEO from an ASEAN company to be in that list. So what more do you hope to achieve in your tenure?
No, first, I'm very much honored to be on that list. But you know, I must say that it is not the result of me alone. Yeah, there's a lot of people behind that achievement. But one more achievement that I think that I'm even more proud of is that Petronas has moved from the 130th position to 120th position from 2019 to 2020. So that is, and our brand equity value, it was $13.3 billion in 2019. Now it's $15.2 billion. So that's a 14% increment. I think that you shouldn't miss that. That is even more important, because you know it is the most valuable brand in ASEAN, and it is in the top 10 brand for oil and gas companies. So I think that is even a bigger achievement, and I think this would not have been possible without the support and efforts of all the Petronas staff.
All right. Thank you so much, Tan Sri, for your time. It's been great to have you here on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.